A common Anne with an apparently normal life, she lived in her house, in the same pattern of waking up early, working and sleeping to work more, until out of nowhere a bizarre event transformed her life forever. She came across a giant cat in her house. And guys, every day I become even more grateful for the help you have been giving me. You are incredible and I just have to thank you. Thank you very much. But let's not stop here, let's go with everything towards 15,000 subscribers, so sit down, put your finger on like and click subscribe for more videos like this here on the channel. And then Gato is already putting his kitchen skills into practice, and as soon as the alarm clock rings, he goes to his owner to wake her up, and she hurries and goes to her work, and after 2 long minutes of CGI of the city, Saku finally arrives in her office, and Yuri goes there to talk to her, whereupon the woman hides what she was seeing on the computer, and her friend makes fun of her, telling her not to look for boyfriends on the company computer. But she reveals that she was actually researching what size a Maine Coon cat is capable of reaching, as she wants to compare it with the cat she has at home, to find out how tall he is capable of reaching. At that moment, a colleague of theirs appears and says that their meeting will be delayed, and then Saku decides to take a break from research and takes her lunchbox, and as for Yuri, she tells her friend that anything should happen if Saku can't keep the cat, she could leave it to her. And returning home, Saku thinks that this possibility could actually be possible, but remembers that her cat is not at all normal. And well, Yukichi gets angry because she arrived late from work on a Friday, and when he looks at the table, Saku realizes that he had prepared dinner and it had already gone cold, and quickly apologizes. And after eating, she faints from sleep, but the cat takes her to the house and takes her to take a shower, and after that Yukichi takes the lunchbox he had made for her from her bag, and when he realizes that she ate everything, Yukichi is happy, but Saku appears behind him and the cat takes a disguise, and she comments about today's lunch being delicious, and then decides to go to the fridge to get the next day's lunch. However, Yukichi doesn't allow it, as she has to save it for tomorrow, but Saku fawns over his lunchbox so much that Yukichi ends up making another one for her to eat now, and she comments on him always pleasing her taste buds, but soon remembers that Yuri had it is said that women who live alone and with cats generally tend not to get married, and this shakes her. But Saku tries to resist and convinces herself that she is okay with this situation. Well, the next day Yukichi already prepares the lunch for the day and goes to wake up Saku, but she doesn't seem so excited about going to work. So far nothing unusual, but she is scared because of the meeting she will have with the director general, and she says she hasn't finished her work yet, and starts to regret everything, and Yukichi, fed up, throws her out of the house and locks the door. After all, human problems aren't his problem. And while she gets screwed at work, the cat stays at home watching Anna Maria Braga from Japan, and upon hearing that they would teach how to prepare a curry, Yukichi soon starts paying more attention to the TV, and after listening to the entire recipe she decorates it immediately and prepares the dish. And then suddenly Saku sends a voice message on the phone and says that she is having problems at work and because of that she will need to sleep there, that is, she won't stay to eat the curry that Yukichi prepared. Meanwhile, the company is in chaos, and all the employees are struggling to deliver all their work on time, until Saku's cell phone rings, and when she answers it she hears her cat clicking her tongue, which means he's fine. Pissed off, and in this way she starts working at a superhuman speed, thus awakening the superior CLT instinct, and then Saku managed to finish the entire week's work so she could return home and not feel Yukichi's wrath. Well, Yuri presents her with a homemade cat house, and in this context it would be very convenient, but the house is more like a helmet, and at bedtime this served somehow, and the next day her lunchbox is ready. But besides that Yukichi made a homemade cookie, to thank Yuri for the gift, and when she arrives at work, her colleagues take one with her face, saying that her culinary skills would make her a good wife. But Saku says she's not good in the kitchen, and almost says that her cat prepares everything, but that obviously wouldn't go over well, she would certainly be transported from there straight to a mental hospital, so she lies saying that she saw the recipes on the internet. And well, her boss shows up to talk about work and asks about her cat, and then Saku asks how long he knew about her cat, and he says he already saw it once, and then his cell phone rings and he goes out to serve him. She finds it strange that he says he has already seen her cat, but right after that day Orizuka traveled for work, so Saku could only ask him more questions next week, and Saku finds herself very anxious to the point of believing that she will lose her cat. Sleep, but she gets home and Yukichi had already prepared dinner. In short, she slept very well that night. The next day Yukichi goes outside to throw the trash, and he meets a little lady who comes to congratulate him on his effort and work, and she questions how long he has been with Saku, as he remembers the day she rescued him. Yukichi on a cold snowy day, when he was still a puppy, and the lady comments that she didn't imagine he would grow so much. Well, he's a little past his prime, and well, she presents him with tea and nori seaweed, things that he loves it, and so he prepares chicken and nori dumplings for his owner. And when she finishes, she asks for more, but Yukichi throws a scale in her face, and this makes her despair and run away, but she is soon captured by Yukichi who weighs her, and Saku realizes that she is weighing more. With that, the menu of the cat switches to a much lower calorie diet. Yukichi has an internal monologue, where he says he is the first ingenious cat of all, and then his owner comes home seeing her inside out. In other words, the cat came back after stuffing her face a lot, and Yukichi was already preparing the food, and analyzes with himself that he needs to support his owner at work, because that's how Saku can buy cat food for him. However, he regrets that his human is a disaster in general, but Yukichi remembers the decision he made the day she wanted to adopt him. He decided to go with her. After all, he would end up dying if he continued on that day of heavy snowfall. And he returns to the current moment, and puts his owner to sleep, thinking that he must keep her healthy to guarantee her food for the next day. But in the middle of the night she wakes up wanting another beer, but is soon immobilized by Yukichi. Well, the next day Saku looks at some photos of his puppy, and this reminds her of something she was about to ask, so the two sit down and Saku asks why Yukichi has gotten so big, at which point he gets angry and takes the scales, but she says that she wasn't talking about that, but rather about his height. Saku is surprised by the enormous size he has reached, in addition to also finding it abnormal for a cat to have all her domestic skills. Yes, she is only beginning to realize now that something is wrong. And Yukichi even serves as a woman of the weather, and reminds her to take her umbrella to work when the weather is rainy, and then she can't stand it and thanks her emotionally for all her help. However, she returns to the focus of the conversation, and questions why he has grown a lot, but he hears her words of gratitude and gets lost in his thoughts. And then Saku starts to believe that he doesn't have the answer for that either, and she suddenly remembers that her boss said that he saw Yukichi, but she notices that Onizuka made this comment in a very natural way, as if he didn't find it strange, the size of his cat, but then it comes to his mind that he may have seen him as a kitten, but at that time his house was filthy, and Saku is embarrassed by the possibility that his boss saw how disorganized she is, so asks Yukichi if he knows any way to erase his memory. But he just goes to take a nap and leaves her talking alone, and well, after that she sits in the fetal position and thinks that she won't be able to face her boss after that, and seeing his owner's deplorable situation, Yukichi decides to ease it for her, and delivers a beer, and after several cans he finally managed to get her to drink until she forgot her problems. In the end, Yukichi did what she wanted. Well, when he goes to the market, two customers notice this cat, and wonder if they are going crazy, and one of the employees asks her manager what to do, as the giant cat was there again, and the manager he frowns and decides to go there and talk to him, but when he reaches Yukichi he clasps his paws and thanks him for being a loyal customer, and Ryo doesn't understand anything, thinking it was to keep the cat away. Well, she keeps analyzing him, and wonders where the zipper on his costume would be, and when he goes through his shopping the girl comments on a sample of churro packets, which are provided for customers who buy canned cat food, and she asks if Yukichi would like some samples. And clearly this brings a huge smile to the big boy's face. And after Ryo finishes serving him, she goes to the manager, and notices that he is as strange as the giant cat she just served. The crazy man is laughing to himself, but he explains that he was reading satisfaction surveys in the presence of the manager. Giant cat in the store, and all the customers thought he was cute, so they are against banning him from going to the market, too, right, and well, the manager liked the cat so much that he started to consider the possibility of putting him to work in the market. And speaking of him, the poor guy was already having problems with dirt. That's because he had just cleaned the place, and the next morning Saku is at work, producing like a mule, and then she receives a compliment from one of his superiors, and Saku comments that she just rested a lot that weekend, but in her mind she feels like she is forgetting something, and that something arrives just in time. In this case it was her boss Onizuka. He has just returned from his business trip, and he asks to talk to her. However, Saku wanted to die for being next to him. It seems that the beer was not able to erase his memory for so long. Well, Onizuka talks to her about the evaluation for Company C, what they had said last week, and he says that she submitted the work before the deadline, and that helped everyone a lot. In this, Onizuka remembers her beginnings at the company. Saku was a much less sure of herself employee, and he questions if this sudden change of hers has to do with her cat, and this leaves her completely in shock, which makes her scream no, and asks how he knows about the cat and also questions him about when he came to her house, and then he explains that it was shortly after she worked at that company, and he says he found her in a bar left. Onizuka felt obliged to leave her home safely, but when they got there the door was locked. However, the cat appeared and unlocked the door, and this left him very confused and imagining that Saku had just forgotten to lock the door. Well, she asks if he ever entered her house. But she asks, showing a certain amount of nervousness. Then Onizuka tells her to stay calm, as no man would have the courage to do anything to her in a house full of rubbish, and she asks Onizuka to give her some extra chores, to make up for her carelessness, and then he asks her to she goes to an aquarium with him on the last Sunday of the month. And arriving at each Saku, he tells Yukichi the news, and shows the poster of the event he will go to with his boss, and says he will go to a live performance by the group Sea Slugs, at which Gato appears astonished, as he also knew this famous group. Another monologue from Yukichi begins, and he highlights all his great wisdom in doing things, but even a being of light like him still has his problems. In this case it would be his inefficient human who can barely separate the trash at home. Even the crows on the street can identify the days she should take out the trash, so Yukichi wonders how a company hired someone like her. And well, the next day Saku asks Yukichi to teach her how to cook. It seems that a sense of responsibility started to hit her, but the cat just ignores her and goes back to her tasks, but she begs and says that she doesn't want to be a useless person who depends on him to take care of himself, and says he remembered that last week, and that way she convinces him, and Yukichi takes out a book of basic recipes, which only has recipes that any idiot can prepare. And he points to a recipe for simple rice with a raw egg on top, and then he does the most difficult part of the recipe, which would be preparing the rice, in which the only part that Saku should do was break the raw egg and throw it over the rice, but even this she has difficulty doing, and when she breaks the egg she throws several pieces of shell along with the egg. The faggot is really a donkey. But Yukichi solves this problem too, and removes the skins with a chopstick. Well, there isn't a thing this cat doesn't know how to do, but Saku still manages to mess up, and ends up soaking his plate in shoyu, and this leaves the cat perplexed as to how his human could be covered up at that level, so Saku decides to make an even simpler recipe. But when leafing through the pages of that book she notices that she has already eaten the dishes from all those recipes, and then she remembers that Yukichi prepares those basic recipes when I was a puppy. And at this he is ashamed and hides, because now he is much more professional than that. However, Saku feels a certain nostalgia about eating a rice cake from that book again, and asks him to make it for her, and he answers the question. Your order. Well, the next day Yukichi goes to prepare the food, and ends up getting confused when breaking the egg due to an annoying fly. And then, when everything is ready, he also hits his paw on the corner of the table. Well, it looks like he's learning to be clumsy like his owner, and speaking of her, the clumsy woman appears there and accidentally steps on his tail, just to leave his day is even better. And well, after she leaves for her work he goes back to taking care of household chores, and when he puts the clothes on the line to dry, a violent rain comes out of nowhere and makes him have to wash everything again. It seems like this is definitely the worst day of your life. And when he turns on the TV, he comes across with a report about the heavy rain, and the reporter goes to talk to Saku, and comments to her about the importance of always carrying an umbrella at these times, and Saku says that someone in her house always sets aside an umbrella to her in these moments, and she says she is very grateful to that person. And Yukichi is very happy with this comment. And when she gets home Saku has a surprise, because dinner was on another level that day, and as a way of saying thank you, the next night she tried to buy him a little gift, and well, by some miracle the next day Elle wakes up early, and Yukichi decides to take her temperature, to see if she had a fever, and indeed she did, so he picks her up and takes her to his bed. But Saku says he can't miss work that day, because he's full of tasks and meetings. And she says it's not so bad that she needs to miss it, but soon after Saku finishes sneezing, she realizes that she will actually need to miss it, and so she calls her boss and tells him about it. But she can only stay half of the day off, that is, she has to be better until the afternoon. So Yukichi brings her some medicine, and she rests until the time comes, but he doesn't allow her to go to work anyway, as it would be counterproductive for Saku to work during this time conditions, so she goes back to sleep, and wakes up the next morning wondering what time it is, until she realizes that she ended up taking the entire day off. Saku is woken up by Yukichi, and complains asking to sleep more, but he takes the poster for the event she planned to go to with her boss, but it takes her a while to understand that this event would happen that day, so she thanks him for waking her up in time, and Yukichi prepares a sekihan to celebrate that moment between her and her boss. But Saku complains to him and says that it's not a romantic date. However, she looks at the deplorable state of her casual clothes and is worried that she doesn't find any that are presentable, until she finds a dress that she wore to a coworker's wedding party, but upon trying it on, Saku realizes that she's been eating too much junk food, because she no longer fits into that dress, but she forgot that she has an ingenious cat at home, and he tries to adjust the dress in a way that fits her body just right. And before Saku leaves, he offers her a picnic basket, as he still had in his mind that it was a romantic date, but she denies it and says again that it's not what he's thinking, and well, arriving at the place of meeting she sees a girl on Orozuka's shoulders, and he introduces her as his niece, and says that he had to be responsible for her that day, and that's why he decided to take her to the aquarium, as the girl is a big fan of the idols who will perform. However, he doesn't consider himself good at dealing with children, and that's why he asked her to come too. In other words, she will basically be Yum's nanny. But she thinks to herself that she isn't good with children either, just that the story it changes when the child praises the bow that Saku has in her hair. From then on the little girl wins her heart, and then the two start talking about cats, and Yum asks what her cat is like. And Saku says it's a big black cat, and the girl points to a cat and asks if it's him, and yes, Yukichi was there too, but he tries to hide, but with that size it's difficult, right? Well, Orozuka answers his phone, and Saku decides to go and confirm if that cat was in fact the cat. Yukichi before his boss also notices his presence, but she realizes that Yum was already playing with the cat, and goes there to fight with her and tells the little girl not to play with unknown cats. And asks Yukichi how he got there. Yum hears her calling the cat by name, and says that now he is no longer an unknown cat, and then a group of children run among them to look at the whales, including Yukichi himself. Yukichi and Saku becomes restless, mentally begging him to go home, and at that moment the boss comes back and calls her to watch the presentation. And in the queue Yum asks Saku where the kitten they saw before is, but Orozuka states that animals are prohibited from entering the event, and well, they comment on the group of sea slugs that will perform, and Orozuka demonstrates that he knows a lot them, and comments about the girls also having a children's show on TV, and Saku remembers that Yukichi recorded one of their shows, and also wonders if he's okay, as he ended up disappearing in the middle of the event. And well, he suddenly appears and leaves some people in the audience curious about what kind of being he was, and meanwhile she is apprehensive, not knowing what to do and just gestures for him to leave. But Yukichi is a big fan of the group that will perform, so it won't be possible to leave, and then the show starts, and Saku can't enjoy it because she's too worried, until at a certain point in the show things get worse, as the girls propose doing a quiz about their group, and asks for volunteers. And when she looks back, Yukichi already has his paw raised, but Orozuka is the one called to participate, and the guy knows a lot and manages to get all the questions right, so he wins a prize and gives it to Yum, who thanks him, calling him Uncle Kaoru, and Saku stands there making fun of his big uncle, and when the show ends she says that he actually gets along very well with children, but he doesn't put things off that way, which Saku says just look at his niece's happy face and he'll get the story straight. However, when they talk about her, they realize that the girl simply disappeared, but when they find her again, Saku notices that she is carrying a basket, and Yum says that the Yukichi gave it to her, and Orozuka wonders who that person was, and then Saku disagrees and says that he would be a friend of hers, and explains that she bumped into him before when he was on his cell phone. But Orozuka already notices that that food was very similar to the lunchboxes that Saku takes to work. Well, after the event is over, she arrives home and praises the sandwiches that Yukichi had made, but when she goes to the living room she notices him lying on the floor and already thinks that he had dragged himself upstairs, but he was only sleeping because of the tiredness of that day. The next morning he wakes up with her all given up to worldly temptations, like Coca-Cola and snacks. But he just goes back to enjoying his favorite idols, but she wakes up and starts recording him. That's really naughty. Meanwhile, the market manager is still obsessed with Yukichi, thinking that it would be great to have him working there. After all, their sales always go up when he's in the store, but Ryo doesn't seem so happy with this idea, and tells him to put a sign in front of the store saying that he is hiring cats, and he says that this is a good idea. But Ryo was just teasing him, but whether it was teasing or not, he actually put a sign in the store. And this made the people around make a lot of fun and comment to each other. Well, Saku is asked by her friends if she buys toys for her kitten to exercise, and she says no, because her cat is always free and roaming around there. But Yuri sees this as something absurd. After all, she would be leaving her house open for him to do this. The complicated thing is that Saku can't even say that her cat knows how to unlock a door. Well, the next day Saku wakes up with pain in her shoulders, but Yukichi is also a good masseur and so he manages to solve her problems, and after that Saku questions about his gloves not being made for humans, and it soon comes to mind that he is the one who makes them, and then Saku suggests that he open a store specializing in gloves for big cats, as if there would be a demand for that, right? Saku returns to his house, and Yukichi is a beast, and she thinks for a while about what could have made him so mad, until she notices that she ended up petting a dog on the street, and he noticed that, this time she didn't escape his wrath, and the next day Yuri comments to her that our animals really feel jealous, and after talking more about their cat Saku returns to her house, and the next day she is woken up by Yukichi, and he forces her to go to work. And after a few hours of work she is called by Orozuka, and he says he doesn't want to talk to her about work. In fact, he gives her a letter. This letter is an invitation to Yum's birthday, given by her, and he explains that she won't be able to go to this party due to a trip. But in addition to Saku, the little girl also asked Orozuka to deliver an invitation to Yukichi. At that moment she finds herself in tremendous trouble. So when she gets home she explains the situation to him, and says that she will have to go alone. But when they look better at the invitation they both notice that it is a costume party, and so while she is going to work Saku thinks that maybe it will be possible to take Yukichi too, as it would be more difficult for him to be discovered. However, when she got home her mind changed, and she considered not taking him again. But he was already sewing a kitten to give to Yum as a gift. And she also made a mouse costume for Saku, and well, the next day they are ready to go, but she again wonders whether to take Yukichi or not. But one of Yum's relatives appears and already pushes them both inside, and at the party Yukichi draws all the attention to him. Even though it's a costume party he's still very suspicious, and Saku is still tense about it all. And some guests comment about having seen that giant cat in the market again. However, they look at the fake zipper on it, and believe that it is in fact just a very well-made costume, and well, the girl from before appears and thanks Saku for taking care of her younger brother at the company. With that she deduces that that girl is Yum's mother, although she appears to be so young, but Saku soon notices that she had said that Orozuka would be her younger brother, that is, the girl is even older than her. Well, Yukichi disappears momentarily, and the boss's sister says that he would have been pulled to the second floor by Yum, and then the little girl calls him to meet her grandmother, but he doesn't think that's a good idea. But Yum tells him that on the second floor there are things about the Umusi group, and that way she convinces him, and when she gets there Yum tells Yukichi that her grandmother can't see so well anymore. And the little lady extends her hand to greet him, and she is impressed, because he is actually a very big cat, and the lady comments on how he reminds her of the black kitten she had. However, at that moment Saku arrives, and runs to tell her that her cat is not dangerous. After all she thought that the lady would be scared by his size. However, she says that Saku is a very lucky girl to be living with an Anko cat. And she explains that this expression is given to black cats that usually bring a lot of luck to their owners. And then Saku is amazed by this information, and they all return to Yum's party, and after finishing the celebration, they go home, and on the way, Saku comments about being worried about whether the fake zipper would fool people or not. But in the end everything worked out. And they walk a little further, they arrive at a park bench, and Saku says that she found him under it. At that moment memories of the day come to her mind, and she explains to Yukichi that he looked like a ball of ohagi rice, and how Saku was in the mood to eat something sweet. He caught her attention right away, and well, Orozuka was on his trip, and receives photos of the party on his cell phone. So the guy ends up being surprised by the appearance of a giant cat at his niece's party, because, will it be? But even so, Orozuka decides to buy something to give as a gift to Saku, because she broke this deal for him. Well, the anime goes back a few days, and we go back to the day before Yum's party, and Saku was all silly with the cat-shaped stuffed animal that Yukichi had made, and asks him to make one for her too, and in the end, the cat ended up giving in, and after that, Saku returns home after a party that took place at her company. However, she comes back again, limping and fainting at the entrance of the house, and Yukichi thinks to himself that at this rate she will never find a partner. And then the phone rings, and Saku had said that he was resting for a while in the square near their house, and this raises a warning signal in him that he runs to the place, and in fact she was passing out on the bench, so he takes her back home. And on the way Yukichi starts to consider waiting for her near the station she uses. With the arrival of winter, she starts to complain, and asks where her kotatsu is, but Yukichi reminds her that she ended up spilling beer with the kotatsu plugged in. But she says she received a bonus at work, and decides to buy a kotatsu to them, but he doesn't trust her and thinks that the idiot is going to destroy the business again. But Saku tries to appeal and says that Yukichi will be able to warm his paws after a long day of housework. However, he is not stupid, because he knows that kotatsu will only serve to fulfill her whims. But Saku sneakily tries to buy the object on Amazon, but Yuki takes the cell phone from her hand. And being in this situation she tries one last strategy. In this case it would be to bribe him with things he likes to eat, but when she tells him that she is when he left, he had already gone shopping. Yeah, think of an efficient boy. And when he is shopping Yuki hears Ryo talking about a lottery machine, and if he is very lucky the participant could win a kotatsu, so he participates, but only wins a useless scarf, and when he gets home Yuki looks for Saku and not the finds it nowhere, so he imagines that she could have killed herself because he forbade her to buy kotatsu. But she soon appears at home, and Saku tries to hide the kotatsu she brought but says she won it in a market draw, and after installing it, she pleases Yuki with cat food and a DVD from the group Umusi, with the hope that he won't fight with her, and besides, Saku says that he could rest, as she would clean the house for him. But Yuki just gets up and gets her a beer. However, he knows that Saku is very dense, so he already took charge of buying a socket protection, to prevent it from damaging the kotatsu again. Well, after another day of work, Saku arrives home, and says he has a gift for Yuki, but the gift was some plants that he was already having problems with, and she knew that and was just giving it to him as a joke, so he took the plant, cut off some of its roots, leaves and placed it in a small container. Well, on another day a delivery man rings the doorbell at their apartment, and leaves the delivery with Yuki, but returns to work very unhappy with the scene he saw. A giant cat is usually very unusual. And when Saku arrives home, she comes across the package, and it contains a note that reveals that it was a package sent by her mother, and in the note she said she was worried about Yuki, because her daughter was very sloppy, and because of her mother would have sent her several cat foods, and then she asks Saku to send some photos of the cat. But when she goes to take the photos, Yuki does several very extravagant poses, even too much for a cat, and Saku asks him to act more like a normal cat. But another problem arises. She still hasn't revealed to her mother about her cat becoming the size of a building, so to disguise it she unravels his hair and makes a pile of fur, to say it's her cat, but her mother realizes that it's not Yuki, and asks her to send a real photo. Then she realizes that she screwed up for good, but to make matters worse, her mother says that she will visit there soon, to see if the cat is really okay, and then Saku asks Yuki what they could do to get around the situation, but he gets a drink, because he thought she was talking about how they should welcome her mother, but Saku says she wasn't talking about that, but it's strange that he knows what her mother's favorite drink is. And meanwhile, her mother tells her father that she should go visit her soon, because she's worried about the cat. After all, it's been years since she sent them a decent photo of the cat, but another photo reaches her, and it was a very clever photo, with perspective strategies, to deceive the real size of her giant cat, and after looking at the photo, Saku thinks about taking more photos, to keep in case her mother asks for more. Besides, she can show these photos at work without generating suspicion. Well, after another day of work, Saku arrives home, and receives a message from her mother, where she said that she sent another package to her house, and in this she notices that Yuki is very happy to have received a sharpening stone as a gift. Then her mother calls, and asks if Yuki was sad for only sending that thing today, but Saku says no, and that he is happy, but soon realizes that it would be abnormal for a cat to be happy with a gift like that, and tells her mother that Yuki was happy because of the package box. And so she asks Saku to take a photo of Yuki inside the box and send it to her, but she disagrees and says that she is tired and will go to sleep. But her mother is insistent and asks to at least hear him meow. However, she never heard him doing that, so she only puts him to purr to her mother. Well, after that she questions the usefulness of a sharpening stone. After all, she believed it was professional equipment. But Yuki picks up a rock and shows her the use of one, and looks at Saku's face with monstrous disdain, implying that this is something common sense, and she's just mentally retarded. Well, after her in the shower, she asks him what they are going to have for dinner, and then sees him sharpening his knife and gets scared, but anyway she thanks her mother. After all, they are both enjoying the gift in some way. And this was another video on the channel. If you liked it and want more videos like this, subscribe and leave a like. See you in the next one.